Welcome to the African Hub for Sustainable Creative Economies Knowledge Hub interviews. My name is Avril Joffe, and I'm the lead investigator for the South African Hub on Film and Digital Media. I'm based in the Cultural Policy and Management Department at the University of the Witwatersrand in the School of Arts. I'm sitting here with Nick Cloete, who is going to be sharing his journey and career in the animation industry as an animation professional. So, Nick, can I ask you to introduce yourself and tell us how you got involved in the animation industry?
It all had to do with my brother, actually. I was working in the live action space as a producer, and then someone actually went to MIPCOM and managed to secure a long form series, which they really had no business doing because they had no experience doing anything of the like. And then my brother was one of the people who became head of department to be able to see that through to completion. He was the animation director on that show, and they were working him to the bone, and I didn't understand what was happening. He was working night and day shifts, so I needed to find out and what the heck was happening. And it turned out they didn't even have any means, by which they can actually assess where they were in the process at any given time. And so obviously the clients were very distressed about where they were and the fact that they had no idea where they are and where they needed to be. So yeah, I just got involved. And then all of the heads of departments from that project, we had a good rapport and an excellent working relationship. Thank you so much. Thank you. My team very kindly made me some hot chocolate. So yeah, and then we just decided that we had a good thing going, and we would just continue to do what we're doing using the experience we did working on that project. And we never looked back.
So it seems that the process of management and professional work is your real core value that you bring to this work. Can you tell us a little bit how you got into that? How did you become knowledgeable about how to run an animation business and the industry part of it? As you're saying, you noticed that so many things were going wrong.
I think it was just logical to me that you would want to know how long it was going to take you to do whatever you were doing. And especially if they had very specific TX dates. So if it was going to go on screen, it was expected to, that somebody would be managing that process to make sure that it got from script to screen. So I actually couldn't understand why it was that they didn't have anything like that in place. So to me, it was all reasonably, we didn't learn anything like that because I have an undergraduate degree in audiovisual production management, but that doesn't tell you anything like it. So much of the stuff that you learn on the job, but some of these things are really intuitive. Like it's straightforward in my view. So, and then some of the details you learn down the way because you rely upon your technicians and your heads of department to advise what they need. And you learn on that basis. And you talk about timelines, you take that on a case-by-case basis. But everything related to the actual process and pipeline and workflow, that stuff you learn on the job. Business affairs as well. I didn't come from an economics background. I didn't come from a financial background. I just learned all of that stuff as we went along. So it's one of those very painstaking curvatures, in terms of your learning experience.
And in this journey, what are you most proud about? What are the key things that you've done in your own studio company that you feel this is what I was working towards, this is what I wanted to achieve?
I'm very proud of my team and their capabilities because of our track record, our work ethic, and the quality of work that they're capable of producing. It really is one of the rarities in all of the continents that I've found. And the fact that we specialize in 2D because we all have a massive appreciation for the technique and the discipline, the art form. And yeah, that's things of which I'm most proud. There are many projects that I can mention to you that in which we've been involved that, anything in the entertainment space. We love working in long form, or even short form entertainment, but provided it's a series, a show, a short, it's anything like that, that's the space we want to be in.
What would you say to someone coming into the industry? What kind of skills do you think people need to have to be in 2D?
There are many skill sets that are completely transferable. If you're a good draftsman, if you can do character design, if you have a more technically inclined, that you be better predisposed toward rigging, If you're somebody who is well organized and enjoys administrative functions, then you can be on the production end. There are myriad roles that anyone can fulfill in animation because it's quite broad and expansive, and it's a big operation and necessitates quite a lot of human resources. So time and attention all across the board. If you could be an executive producer and you could be the person that actually sources the funding and finance and figures out the finance plan. And a line producer, somebody who manages the spend on each of those line items. And, there are many, many functions that people can fulfill in animation. It's not purely and strictly and discreetly an artist's job and a line of work. You could be a performer, you can be an accountant, there are many different skills that we need to successfully do what we do. So I think for anyone who's looking to enter into animation as a professional, that they just be as good as they can be. And I think they should self-assess in a way that they are critical of themselves insofar as possible, because I know that a lot of people can be very thin-skinned, but they have to recognize that whatever they are now and however they're good they are now, they can be better, and they really should strive to be better. And they should try and look more objectively at what they're capable of doing in order to get better and to improve and just to continue to hone and refine. Because if you have skills, it doesn't matter who you are. You're going to be very sought over by studios that are looking for skills.
And I think this brings me to your work as chair of Animation South Africa, because clearly you've mentioned human resources, skills, and being sought after in the global industry. Can you tell us something about your vision for Animation South Africa and what you think the key challenges are facing animation in South Africa today?
Well, to let your viewers know, the purpose of Animation South Africa, which is an industry association which represents the interests of VFX and animation professionals. Our primary focus it's actually multifaceted because we recognize that there are a lot of problems along the value chain. So we think about ways in which we could intervene in order to improve those conditions. So one of the most obvious being the policy framework in which people work, because there are going to be policy decisions that are going to be conducive to growth and restrictive and prohibitive to growth, and policy decisions are going to regress our progress that we made with growth. So it's going to shrink the economy quite significantly. So we try to intervene if and where we can. It's difficult because there's quite a few policy decisions at the moment and bad legislation that's in circulation that we're trying to oppose, all within the interests of actually serving the interests of the artists and animation professionals. So the policy framework is one. Market access is another. So we coordinate international delegations to key country markets specifically for animation. So we try and do whatever it takes to get as many South Africans there as possible. So we'll try and get discounts on accreditation. We'll try and source funding to cover their the travel costs, especially for the emerging exporters that don't really have much experience or collateral. They don't have capital to afford to go to these different events because it's quite expensive, especially with flights and transfers and accommodation and visas. It all adds up. And so we try to do what we can to get this, to encourage more participation so we can lead to more market access for creators and for servicing studios looking for commission gigs, for people looking for co-production partners and distribution and finance and sales and marketing, the works, the full expanse of things. And then, of course, we have, and this is Isabel Rourke's department, the SMMEs, the incubators, the clusters, to create these facilities in which people can share and trade skills and harness and hone their skills, and so that we can have more capacity to produce more projects in future. So we're going to be capacitated to do so. So there's a skills development aspect to that too. And we're running a number of different programs with some of our funding partners on very specific interventions. So yeah, it's been quite expansive, the level of work. I don't know the level of detail you need, but that's pretty much the broad umbrella.
It would be great for our viewers to hear what some of those projects are and how you use the work of Animation South Africa to also showcase the value of South African animation to the global industry. So you can just highlight a little bit about why you think what does South Africa offer the global animation industry?
Yeah, what I find that the people take for granted about South African work ethic, because we're quite fastidious. We do things quite expeditiously by comparison. We want it now. We tend to do and resolve. We're also problem solvers. What I find is that compared to the elsewhere of the world, especially the different servicing destinations, is that you have to solve their problems for them in order for them to do the work for you. Whereas South Africans are quite good at being on top of that and figuring out themselves in order to deliver what they need to do for you. So we're quite a self-initiated kinds, culturally speaking. There's obviously the rate of exchange is quite favorable at the moment, although the rand has strengthened over the past 2 weeks, which I think for exporters is alarming, and for the domestic market is also very encouraging. So it depends on what side of the fence you're on there. Culturally, we're also quite aligned. Linguistically, from a language point of view, we understand one another, especially working with, from a time zone perspective, we're quite aligned with the Europeans. And culturally, we're very aligned with North America and even Australia and New Zealand. So some of the more established animation industries abroad, there's a lot of things that we have that makes us a good choice. And it's also the quality of the work, because there's a few shops that have been produced, like that have been built themselves up. These are bootstrapping studios, people who started off as very micro enterprises, in some cases solo entrepreneurs, that have managed to build these studios that are very well established and have a tremendous track record. So there's a lot of good reasons to work with SA in that basis. Of course, it's a case-by-case basis, and I don't really think that anything that South Africa does is necessarily exemplary or that is different from what they can do elsewhere in the world. So you're going to have to assess things on a case-by-case basis. But in my experience, based on our various colleagues in the trade, I can tell you that we offer quite a lot of value.
And just to end, what would you say are your future goals as an animation professional?
Future goals, I would say, we just want to continue to be a part of the entertainment space. So for us, though, we want to originate more of our own intellectual property. So we'll create more copyright materials within my studio. And then I'll probably redirect my efforts more into executive producing, because that's why I've really been more involved in the operations and business affairs. So yeah, I'll probably redirect my efforts into doing that, because that's ultimately what leads to the long-term sustainability of the studios, because it's the people who are actually sourcing the finance, the funds, who actually are the key decision makers in the industry altogether. So it's a complementary framework and an ecosystem in which we work, because we need people who can do everything, and we need people who are predisposed to want to do certain things. So we need people who can manage a studio and keep that engine running, and we need other people that can actually help the business side of things, and together, we're going to have a sustainable enterprise. So everything in animation is all about people doing the best they can at what they do.
Thank you, Nick, so much for sharing your views, especially about the sustainability of the industry. Your knowledge and your experience is so important to the project that we're working on, the African Hub for Sustainable Creative Economies. And thank you so much for your time.